Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be talking specifically about our next critical theory, which is the gender lens. So with this lens, we will be able to analyze patterns of thought, behaviors, values, power relationships between and within the sexes. So first, let's talk about the different types of questions we should ask ourselves when we apply the gender lens to a text. First, how are gender roles portrayed in a text? Do they confirm or reject stereotypes of gender roles? 2. What happens to a character when they break the rules of their gender? And 3. How does gender affect certain characters positively or negatively in a text? As we read and apply the gender lens to different texts, I think it's also important to think about our own life. So for instance, are there separate rules based on gender in your family? I know for sure there were in mine. For instance, my brothers were allowed to go outside and work on the ranch, where I was expected to stay inside so that I could clean the house and make lunch for everybody when they were done with their chores. Also think about, are girls and boys sports treated differently? If so, why and how? Next, think about dating. What are the dating expectations based on your gender? And also, have you ever realized you were or were not allowed to do something because of your gender? Asking these questions of ourselves will allow us to make connections between things that we've seen in our own lives and things that we see happening in a certain text. Over the next few slides, I want us to look at what popular kids' movies have taught us about gender expectations. So the first expectation is that in order to be happy, you have to get married or be in some sort of relationship. I think Disney is kind of pretty guilty of this frequently. Many of the kids' movies that I grew up with showed the girl pining after the boy. And actually, she couldn't be happy unless she had the boy. We see that in movies like The Little Mermaid, Cinderella, even Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The next expectation about gender roles is that women and girls should be skinny, pretty, good singers, excellent housewives, and they probably should also be able to communicate with animals. When we look at expectations for men or boys, we know that they should be handsome, strong, brave, taller than their girlfriend, and willing to fight. These are ideas that are constantly shown to us in movies that we watch as children. Next, gendered toys also send messages about children should behave depending on their gender. For instance, if you were to do a Google search of girls' toys, you would probably find a long list of toys about the house. So toys that allow girls to practice cooking or cleaning, toys that allow girls to practice makeup and things like that. Okay, these toys teach little girls that their place is in the home, cooking, cleaning, and taking care of children. If you were to do a Google search on boys' toys, you would most likely find toys about trucks and tools and playing sports and being outside. And these toys also send a specific message about how boys should behave as well. These toys teach boys that they need to be handy with tools and they should be good at fixing things. So again, the toys that children play with and the movies that children watch definitely send strong messages about how society expects them to behave as they grow up. Now again, if we bring our conversation back to the toys, if we were to look at the toys that are on Target's or Walmart shelves right now, there's probably someone missing. So if you look at these images, who do you notice is missing? The right answer is that women are missing. Okay, this sends a message that women shouldn't be or can't be action figures. It sends the message that women aren't capable of doing the really cool things that men are. There's also strong messages being sent in magazines. So the image shows here two different gendered magazines. On the left-hand side, we have a girls magazine, and on the right-hand side, we have a boys magazine. And the messages being sent are completely different. If you look at the girls magazine, it says tips about fashion, your dream hair, getting rid of drama. Also, the one that baffles me most is waking up pretty. But on the other hand, when we look at a boys magazine, it talks about exploring your future. This sends a powerful message about the futures that boys and girls should have. One magazine says, hey girls, this is how you can be pretty. And boys magazines say, hey guys, let's talk about what you can be when you grow up. The messages are totally different depending on gender. So let's summarize. Society's expectations of women are the following. Women should be nice. Okay? We should also probably be silent according to society's expectations. Women should also be thin yet very curvy. Women should be modest. Women should be domesticated and in the house. Women should be dedicated to taking care of children. And women should be invested in romantic relationships. Now, these expectations of women lead to harmful stereotypes, which leads to sexism. Now, let's summarize society's expectations of men. According to society, men should be strong and brave. Men should not be perceived as weak or vulnerable. Men should be in control of their emotions. Men should take risks. And men should exert their power over women. Again, these expectations lead to harmful stereotypes that then lead to sexism. Now, the effects of sexism are as follows. They can lead to harmful stereotypes that impact the goals we set for ourselves as children and adults. I'm going to speak to this very personally. So when I was a little girl, I watched a lot of princess movies where the girl was supposed to find the man and then she could be happy. I never saw female characters in roles of authority. I didn't see girls being strong. I didn't see girls doing really cool action-y things like I saw male characters doing. Okay, I know that children's movies are becoming a little bit more diverse and more female characters are being shown in positions of authority, but it's not something that I saw very frequently as a little girl. And I can't help but wonder if maybe I would have grown up to be a little bit differently if I would have seen strong female characters represented in movies. Also, harmful stereotypes can impact how we treat people in our personal and professional lives. If you think a woman should behave in a certain way and she doesn't, you might treat her differently. Likewise, if you think a man should behave in a certain way and he doesn't, you might treat him differently. Harmful stereotypes can also impact how we live our daily lives. So this can dictate how we love, how we parent, and how we lead. And this only outlines a few effects of sexism. There are so many others. So again, as we read, we are going to be applying the gender lens. So this simply means that we are required to focus on patterns of thought, behaviors, values, and power relations between and within the sexes. It also requires readers to consider how society's expectations of gender influences characters within the text. So again, although I've already listed these questions, I think it is beneficial to list them again. As we read a text and apply the gender lens, these are some questions we should ask ourselves. First, how are gender roles portrayed in a text? Do they confirm or reject stereotypes of gender roles? What happens to a character if they break the rules of their gender? And lastly, how does gender affect certain characters positively or negatively? These are questions that we'll try to answer as we apply the gender lens to different texts. And lastly, I just want to give you an example of the gender lens applied. So in John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, Curly is married to the only woman on the ranch, okay? And it's kind of sad, but she's actually never given a name in the story. She's only referred to as Curly's wife. Okay, so if we were to look at this instance looking through the gender lens, the reader would recognize that this makes her an object instead of a real human being. She's also often accused of being very flirty with the men that she interacts with. This is an unfair portrayal of women and only reinforces stereotypes that women create conflict in the presence of many men. Okay, so this would be like blaming the victim. So again, as we apply the gender lens, we're simply exploring how gender roles influence a certain text. If you have any questions about anything that I've talked to you about in this video, don't hesitate to reach out and ask questions. Bye everyone.